Hey, are you a bass player that plays gospel or someone who's wanting to learn how to play gospel music? Well, I have something that I've created for bass players just like you. I've been creating these gospel bass jam tracks. I've already created contemporary gospel quartet, and now I've created the straight gospel bass jam pack. And what that basically is my interpretation of gospel choir music. It's something that I think is really essential to learning how to really play and understand gospel music. Now, this bass jam pack features music that feels more like the gospel choir stuff, which is not to be confused with praise and worship or gospel quartet, any of that kind of stuff. It's slightly different. It's all gospel. The thing about gospel, if you've listened to it, it's pretty vast. It's a lot of stuff that you can learn in gospel music, and I understand that not everyone has access to that music, and not everybody understands that there's so many different areas of gospel music. So if you are a bass player that's wanting to know more about gospel, want to have something to jam to, I've created this pack just for you. And as well, I've created the instructional to go along with it. So I'm going to be breaking down all 6 of these tracks, showing you exactly what I'm doing. You're going to get my version of my bass take of what I'm playing, how I would approach it, as well as getting the sheet music and the tab if you need that. Some of you guys just play by ear, and that's fine. I'm going to walk you through exactly what I'm doing, using the number system and all that kind of stuff, so that you can get a good idea how to approach this and add it to your arsenal of things to pull out. So if you just happen to find yourself in that gospel music situation, you know exactly what to do. So I encourage you to check out this gospel pack and start adding a little bit more to your arsenal. I'll see you on the inside. Peace. Morning, everybody. Thomas, man, I'm good. How are you? Netherlands in the building. Good morning. Danny Bass, good morning, man. Cameroon is in the building. Good to see you. Well, good to see you. Your icon there. All is well with me. Angel, what's up, man? Pennsylvania's in the building. T, what's up, man? Bernard, Kenya's in the building. Pennsylvania, I think I said that already. Floppy, yep, it's Tuesday, man. UK, Southampton. Keith Oliver, what's up, man? That Fender sounding great. I'm about to order one. Yeah, man, it's kind of addictive. I gotta be honest, man. I'm digging this Fender. It's a breakaway from the usual, the norm for me. We'll see how long I keep playing it, but yeah, I'm enjoying it for now. It's you get a different bass, and the whole vibe is different. Everything you start thinking a little different way. You hear different tones. You get inspired, that kind of thing. So it's always cool, and it gives me a break from my other 5 string that I'm generally playing. And so yeah, it's different. It's a little different. Raphael, good morning to you. Yeah. So let's see who else we got on here. Absolutely. Thank you guys for joining in. If you're new to this page, you're new to this channel, I'm Jermaine Morgan. You are watching Grooves and Motivation live, and I'm honored to be here this morning sharing with you guys. This will probably be a pretty quick, I say quick. I'm going to try to get through this one pretty quick. I got something else I have to do, but I still wanted to come on here and share with you guys before I done that. So hopefully you enjoy it today. I'm just playing through some C minor blues. Just grooving to that. Appreciate that, Raphael. Hey, when you play, are you thinking notes, positions, or numbers? I'll come back to that question. Good morning, Tiffany. I'm not. I'm thinking. I'm doing more listening and trying to hear, if that makes any sense, more so than thinking numbers and all this kind of stuff. I'm just trying to see what I'm hearing over that. Andre, good morning to you. Good morning, brother. That's interesting topic you chose today. Yeah, it is, right? But yeah, so I'm thinking more in terms of what can we do with this? What can we do with these sounds that we're hearing? I know it's minor, and just trying to explore all of my options that I'm hearing in my head. One of the biggest things I've started to try to do is connect the stuff that I'm hearing up here with my fingers, because sometimes you thinking can get in the way of what you want to say, and sometimes you just got to let it flow. Now, there's a time that you need to think before you speak, but allowing that to kind of line up through practice and repetition over and over again, I think you get to the point where you're able to kind of really express some good stuff, right? Because you don't, in a conversation with someone, when they talk to you, hopefully this groove is not distracting. In a conversation with someone, when they talk to you, it's like they ask you a question, and depending on the question, sometimes you pause and you wait before you respond. But most of the time, it's like you just go right into it, unless it's something that's very, very serious, and then you want to really be careful about your answer, and then you kind of ponder for a second, like, okay, let me think about that for a second. But in most situations, you don't have a lot of time, and you need to respond quickly. So it's like you're responding, but a way that I like to do it in these situations, especially if it's territory that I'm not that common with, I like to take my time. I don't rush in there and start playing a whole bunch of fast stuff and that kind of thing. Unless I'm really, really familiar with the territory. But if it's something that I'm navigating my way through, I proceed with caution, but at the same time, trusting what I'm hearing. So it's kind of what I'm doing in the long short of it. All right. Mozzie, good morning to you. Alexander, good morning. Melvin, good morning to you. Who else I missed? Jonathan. Haiti is in the building. Appreciate you tuning in. All right, Kelvin Reeves, Virginia's in the building. Good morning to you, man. Steve, good morning. He said, Big Red State of Nebraska. Yes, sir. All right. Latrell, Odessa, Texas. All right, I got you. All right, let's see here. Jonathan, awesome topic. That's exactly the feeling to play compa. Wish to hear you play some. Maybe soon. Maybe soon. Taking what I hear in my head, then playing it, I find to be hard to do most of the time. I will note this. Appreciate that, Steve. I will note this. It does matter to hear the language. It does matter to hear the language. The stuff that I'm doing over this, I do not consider myself like a bona fide jazz cat because there's a lot more of that language that I still don't understand. But one of the things I have done over the years is I've really listened a lot to the language. So to a degree, it's kind of like going to a different country and you've been there for a little while. You pick up certain things and you're able to kind of keep up to a certain degree. But once they go and start talking 20 miles per hour or 30 miles per hour, it's like, all right, I'm out. You know what I'm saying? Like when y'all was taking it basic level, I kind of understood. All right, street, yeah, street. You know what I'm saying? But once y'all pick up the pace and you start moving like 120 BPM, like all right, so maybe I need to take some time to really kind of get fluent in this. It's just like conversation in that regard. You have to listen to get a feel for the language, to really understand the language in order to start applying some of these things, some of these principles that you're hearing. Because outside of that, it's going to really be hard to hear certain things over chords if you don't practice listening that way. And I think we talk about a lot of things in terms of practicing and working on. I have different students who are working on different things like scales. But one of the things I talk about, I mean, people working on scales, technique, and all this different stuff. But one of the things I talk a lot about, you have to listen. You have to practice listening. Many people don't practice listening. It's as funny as that sounds as a musician. Many people don't practice listening, they kind of, I think I got it, so I'm gonna go for it. Like, no, really practice the art of listening, like not having your instrument and really taking in everything that you're hearing. Like, all right, I'm focused on the bass line because I got to learn this song, but let's key into what the trumpet is doing. What's the piano player doing? What is the drummer doing in this section here? Oh, okay, that's kind of cool. I like how he did that, and like really keying in on each. If you've been around for a while, you know this is something I preach regularly. Listening to everything and seeing what you can pick up on, because as we do that, we begin to learn the language. If you're only focused on the bass part all the time, I mean, you'll pick up a lot of really great stuff. But if you're trying to dig into a little improvisation, you it's a little different. It's a little different once you start trying to dig into some improvisational stuff, and you haven't been listening to that type of stuff, unless you're just naturally gifted and you hear, you know, it's going to be a little more difficult for you to start getting in or getting the ideas out. There has to be some type of inspiration there to pull from, and maybe your vocabulary could be possibly limited. You know, you're hearing stuff and you're not fully connecting the dots because you're low key kind of winging it to a certain degree, and you don't want to wing it. You want to kind of have a. I'm not saying don't wing it at all, but kind of have some type of idea where you're headed, because that gives you a better place to navigate from. All right. So keep expecting you starting. So I keep expecting you to play the Pink Panther. Nah, not gonna play that. This kind of felt it felt similar to Summertime. I wasn't going for that, but some of it felt similar to Summertime. But I mean, this is, like I said, blues, C blues. So it's the same C minor blues rather. So you got the same type of progressions. Anything that's over that type of groove, you kind of hear all those different songs that fall in that same progression. All right. Tiffany says, so true, Jermaine. The most difficult songs I listen to for a day or two closely before picking up the instrument. Yeah, you have to really listen and internalize. Most people that know me, they know I chart out most of the music that I play, but even in doing that, I'm listening. I'm charting out my part because it helps me to retain it, but I'm listening intently so I can make sure I grasp as much as possible from what's happening in this song to fully understand everything that's going on, right? So I'll play a little bit more and we'll jump into our little talk. I know some people are interested to get into that. Stop thinking like a musician. Like what? Morning, Peely. All right, so Steve says, what's your settings to produce? Let me go back. What's your settings to produce that sound? Also, are you using a pedal? Yeah, so I'm playing with my usual setup, guys. Someone asked about this in a few. Well, when I did this video about this bass, they were talking about the sound of the bass. I used the Spectre drive, but before somebody said, that's what it is. No, the only thing I'm using on the Spectre drive is the compression, just a little compression, just to kind of control my sound pretty much. Most of us know the functions of a compression, and it's very very little compression I'm using with the Spectre drive. And the other thing that I'm using is the Hall of Fame reverb, just to add a little ambience to, when I'm doing the improvisation, that kind of thing. I like to feel like I'm recording a record type deal. And I'm using my looper pedal. That's it. Other than that, I'm running straight through the RH750 by TC. I've been had that thing for years. I just like, kind of running through that as opposed to going direct in. And as you can see, the EQ on that is pretty flat for the most part. The highs are boosted just a bit, and the bass is boosted just a little bit, but it's not overbearing. It's barely noticeable. And that's all I'm doing. Other than that, I'm working with the EQ on the bass because I could plug this directly in and get a pretty close sound just with the bass itself being plugged in. So it's not a lot of extra stuff I'm adding to the bass. I think the only major difference would probably be the compression. And that's everything is like, I don't like overdoing anything unless I'm using certain sounds. Like if I'm using an envelope filter or something like that, of course, that sound is going to be drastically changed. But for the most part, I'm using the EQ of the bass, and you can see the setup of the EQ that I'm using right now. I have the mids boosted all the way up. That's just a preference of mine. The highs here are boosted. The bass is boosted. I'm playing, I'm splitting the pickups. I'm going back and forth between splitting the pickups, the whole Marcus Miller type sound that I'm using when I'm playing closer to the neck, and I'm playing off that neck pickup, here. I'm using, I'm splitting the pickups to do that. But earlier when you heard it, I was kind of paying more back to the back pickup, but not all the way. I'm not going extreme all the way. I still want a little meat in there. So I'll go, kind of quarter the way in between, midways. That's how I'm kind of setting this. But for the most part, that's it. I'm boosting the highs. I'm boosting the mids. I'm boosting the lows. So I'm letting the bass do a lot of the work for me. And then, of course, I control a lot of what you're hearing with the way that I'm attacking it. Like dynamics make a big difference in the EQ as well. The way that you do certain things, it can have a big effect on the sound. So that has a lot to do with it, the way you're attacking, the way you're using your hands to get the sound out. All right. And the reason why I say that, because I can hand a different person this bass with the same settings. They don't change a thing and they sound completely different, because the way that they play, the attack and everything, we always say the tone is in your hands. The way that, I can get on that other bass and get a completely different sound. Granted, Defender's going to have a signature type sound, that Warrior's going to have a different type sound. Each bass carries a different tone, but ultimately your sound is going to be in your hands. I got a friend of mine, it doesn't matter what bass he plays, he can always get his sound. He has a peculiar sound that I like. I don't necessarily want to play it with that sound, but hearing him play, I'm like, man, you can get that sound out of any bass that you play, and it's kind of cool. It's like a Ken Smithish type tone that he has, and he can find that tone on any bass he pick up. And I'm like, man, that's kind of cool. I mean, I guess I do the same thing, but of course we are always hearing when other people do it, and it's kind of cool. So all right, so let's go on. Mozzie says, in terms of understanding the language, would you suggest focusing sections of my daily practice in one center, i.e. C minor blues, backing track for 2 weeks, then something else for 2 weeks, etc. You could do it. I would say there's no right or wrong way to do it, as long as you're given the necessary time, and that has a lot to do with you individually. I could say that, and then you might need a month. You know what I'm saying? Spend 2 weeks on this working with C minor blues, and you do it for 2 weeks, and you still don't understand at the end of 2 weeks. Or you do it for 2 hours, and you get like, oh man, I got all kind of ideas just working with this for 2 hours. So I don't want to just, Mozzie, I don't want to just say, yeah, that's what you do, and then that doesn't work for you. I think one of the biggest things, one of the biggest breakthroughs in terms of me moving forward as a player was understanding how I learned. And for me, certain things are certain ways that everybody else learned that doesn't work for me. I have one of my mentors, we would get together every now and again. He would show me some different things, and it would take me a while to get. I wouldn't pick it up really quick. I would sit there, and finally, after about an hour, I figure out what he's talking about, and I get it, and I finally can barely do it. And then I come back a day later after I spent all that time learning it, and I can't remember any of it. And so it's like, something's not clicking here. I know I can retain quicker than that, but for some reason, it wasn't sticking with me. And then once I started figuring out the concept behind what he was doing and understanding, oh, that's how okay, I see it now. And so now I take that idea and I start applying it in other places, and I would get it and it would stick. And then I started learning, for me, if I show someone what I just learned, I'll retain it faster. So I think a big thing for you is to figure out the way that you process, figure out the way that you learn, because everything doesn't work for everyone. Now, if your processing system says, hey, I need 2 weeks on this idea every day, let's say 5 days a week or 6 days a week for 2 weeks on this idea, 2 hours a day, and I'm sweet with it. I got it locked in. If that works for you, by all means, then do that. But I don't want to just give a blanket statement and say, yeah, do 2 weeks of this and then move on to something else for 2 weeks. No, that's why even in my coaching calls, what I try to do is listen and assess. And anybody that's been in my coaching calls, they'll know this. I'll try to do a lot of, if possible, listening and assessing where the player is at before I just give them a blanket, hey, go and work on this, go and work on that, because that might not work. What I did for this student might not work for another student, and they may have a completely different way of learning. And so I have to figure out what that way for that person is based off assessment, and give them something that works for their way of learning, because everything doesn't work for everybody. All right, so the directress, good morning from Champaign, Illinois. Good morning to you. So is Defender starting to grow on you? I think it is a little bit. I think it's definitely growing. It's got recorded a few times, and you guys seeing it in more than one video. So absolutely, absolutely. Good morning, Jermaine. This is Andrew. It's good to be here this morning. Thank God it's Tuesday. I see that you have your fender in place this morning. Love the sound of both pickups. Absolutely, man. It sounds great. I love the thumping and groove you did on the video. I'm not a fender guy. Appreciate that, man. Raymond says, "Good day, everyone from Cape Town." Cape Town is in the building. So, man, thank y'all so much for joining in. All right, because I don't have a lot of time, I got to keep it moving. I got to keep it moving. I've been having fun playing and talking through this groove. Hopefully, y'all have enjoyed it thus far. So, this idea of stop thinking like a musician. I talked about this a long time ago. Oh, yeah. And before I forget, because I'll probably rush off at the end of this. Before I forget, all right, the last giveaway of these strings, sponsored by SIT, is none other than Team Ramrod. If you're watching this morning, or if you're watching in the replay, send me an email to claim your strings. And if you won on the last previous weeks, be sure to send me an email so I can get your strings to you. Send an email to Jermaine at jermainemorgan.net and just basically send me your address. And that way I can ship these strings to you. But that's the last set that I have to give away. Working on something bigger and better to give away once we hit 40,000 subscribers. So please help this channel get there to the 40,000. We're really, really close. I'm looking forward to it. It's not like life is going to change. It's just a milestone. It's just a milestone I want to celebrate by giving to you guys who subscribe to the channel. I can't give something to everybody, but I do want to do something special. So I want to keep that in mind. All right, so moving on into the talk this morning. Stop thinking like a musician. I was on a gig a while back, and I'll never forget. I don't remember who said it exactly. I have an idea who said it, but one of the artists that I work with, one of the things he was saying, you guys have to stop thinking like musicians. At the time, it didn't really click to me. And low key, it was kind of offensive. I'm like, what do you mean? Stop thinking like a musician. And now in hindsight, as I've grown as an entrepreneur and I'm doing different things, that statement stands out to me a lot more in a different way. And I understand what this person meant, what this artist meant. Because when you only think like a musician, depending on your location and depending on how music is valued, let me throw those in there. Because you might be in a place where thinking like a musician is where it's at. You know what I'm saying? If you think like a musician, you eating over there. You're thriving as opposed to trying to survive. So if that's working for you where you are, depending on your region, then by all means, keep doing what you're doing. But here in the States, I know oftentimes that can be a detriment to us. Thinking like a musician only, meaning you just focusing on learning stuff, learning scales, learning groove, and doing all this stuff that you're supposed to do to get better. You're working on all of these things constantly, seeking out these videos, paying for lessons, and whatever you're doing to better yourself, which is all really great. And I commend you for you guys who are doing that. But if that's all you're doing, you might be missing out. So the idea is, all right, what else can I be doing? What else can I be thinking of instead of putting all my focus here? I seen this post the other day on social media. It says, it doesn't matter the level of your skill, you'll get paid according to the budget of the gig. I was like, wow. And in some instances, yes, that is completely true. And in few other instances, no, you get paid according to your skill. But for the majority of the gigs that you play, as a professional, doing this for a long time, the majority of the gigs that I play, gigs that is, sessions are a little bit different. But when it comes to just gigging, majority of the gigs that you play, and again, I'm specifying because somebody gonna come up, man, I get paid because I've been doing this for 30 years and I've done this and I'm a Grammy Award winner. Yes, there are instances where people are compensated based on their qualifications, but for the most part, most gigs, all right, man, this is a gig and we're gonna be downtown or we're gonna be doing this and it pays blah blah blah. This is what it pays. Can you do it or can you not do it? And then they go to the next person. Can you do it? Can you not do it? Now you have the ability to accept or decline that gig. But for the most part, the budget is the budget. That's what the artist or the promoter or whoever, that's what they have. It's like, this is what we're given for this. And, there's wiggle room in some scenarios, but for the most part, you pretty much get paid according to the budget. That's not a whole bunch of room for negotiation. So if that being the case, and again, this is not a blanket statement for everything in every scenario, every situation, because I know it's all different. But for the most part, especially if you're playing in a church situation, or if you're playing, I know I have a lot of church musicians that follow me, or if you're playing on a regular corporate gig or whatever the case may be, it's like, this is the budget. This is what we're able to do. This is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to pay you. You can either accept or decline. And if you can't do it, we'll find somebody else. That's pretty much the musician community right now. It's like, now that stuff is starting to pick back up, this is what it's paying. Can you do it? Okay. All right. Then you can do it. And then, and the other thing I noticed, even checking out Fiverr, I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with Fiverr. I see so many, not only just musicians, but creatives there that are really good. And, they're posting their services and having to, just for the consistency of work, have their prices so low. It's like, how do you even survive with, doing this amount of work for that amount of money? It's like the trade-off of your time doesn't make sense. You're going to trade off this amount of time just to make this amount of money. And I know a lot of people do it for the love of it. It's like, I might have a side hustle and I don't really need the money. And that's great. That's a great place to be, but that's not everybody. Some people are trying to do this full time. So now we have to figure out, okay, how else can I market myself? How else can I market my gifting, my skills, my abilities? What else can I do to go to the people who are willing to, give me what I feel like I'm valued at? Now, if you don't measure up to what you're trying to charge, that's a completely different conversation altogether. That's a whole nother video. We don't have time to get into that. But if you know what your worth is, and if you're learning what your worth is, you got to figure out a way so that you don't have to continue to settle for things you don't want. Because as a musician, a lot of us get stuck into this loop of just doing a gig, go home, do a gig, go home, do a gig, get money. We like living from week to week, in terms of like, all right, what are you doing per month? I don't know. It depends on the gig. How do we begin to change that to level the playing field? Because just having a really honest conversation, most of us as musicians, we don't have a retirement plan. Most of us don't. It's just from gig to gig. If you're fortunate enough to learn to land a few placements and that type of thing with some really great songs, or get something on some, film or TV or some type of commercial or some type of way to monetize your stuff to where you get royalties from it, then okay, that's sweet. But for the most of us, that doesn't happen. So what else can we do to make this thing a little bit more automated? And that's the thing I want to talk to you guys back about. Floppy, I appreciate you tuning in. I know you got to go, man. Thank you for tuning in this far. But yeah, so for you guys who are doing that, like, how do we automate this thing? How do we automate? And that's the thing. And I can't tell you that. I wish I could get on here and tell you this, but real quick, shameless plug. I can give you some ideas with this book that I wrote. And this this post, this video, this live is not about my book, by the way. But while I was saying it, it's like, oh, you can give some ideas. All right. Yeah. So I did write a book with 10 ways to success, some ideas that you can use to create some things that, may bring some money in for you that don't include you just going doing a gig all the time. Because that was a struggle for me in terms of being newlywed, starting a family and all this kind of stuff. It's like, I don't want to do some of these gigs. I don't like the environment. I want to be at home, and there's a person that I started mentoring recently, and they're saying the same thing. They have a family. It's like I did the gig thing. I did a tour or two, but I don't want to be gone all the time. I want to be around. I don't want to miss vital moments in my family's life because I'm out chasing or pursuing this. No shade to anybody that does that or that tours anything. This is not something against you, but there are other people out there who want other options. So how do we explore these options? One of the things, I've told this story many a times, but one of the things, good morning, Andre. One of the things that really kind of started shifting my brain as I was looking for other options, looking for other ways to create some other things. Good morning, Amy. Uh, Create some other things. Just FYI, if you start saying something crazy, you're gonna get blocked. just putting that out there. So, as I started looking at other things, I started trying to think of, okay, what can I do to create some other revenue for me so that I don't have to accept this gig that I don't want to do. Because I started looking at my time differently as I started learning, going on this. We're talking about thinking only like a musician. So I started on this journey, and many of you have heard the story before, where I started reading a lot more books, a lot more what they call self-help books, and they are business books, reading books of entrepreneurs in terms of how they changed their life stories, all this kind of stuff. Books from Think and Grow Rich to Sam Walton's Made in America, and all these different books that I was reading. So many others by Miles Monroe. I'm reading a book by Les Brown right now. You Got to Be Hungry, and there's some other stuff that I'm reading. And over the years, I've read so many of these different books, so I'm taking in all this information. So by doing that, what's up, James? By doing that, it's like I started, I started to get hungry for something else. And as you were getting hungry for these different things, getting hungry for these ideas, it's like stuff starts being attracted to you. What you think about all day, that's what you become. You start attracting certain things to you. So I seen this video, to get to the point. I seen this video, and this guy was basically playing his piano. And if you heard the story, just bear with me. This is for the people who haven't heard it. But this guy was playing his piano somewhere in LA, or not LA, but somewhere in California, like maybe the Bay Area or something like that. And he had got to the point, he had been doing it for 3 years. He had made like over $150,000 in a matter of about 3 years, just playing his own original music, 3 hours a day, 5 times a week. And they asked him, they interviewed him, they did this story with him, and he's like, man, what brought this about? He's like, man, I was doing the gig and scene, playing these different weekends, and I wasn't enjoying the music that I was playing. I wanted to do my own original music, that kind of thing. Good morning, Vic. I was doing my own. I wanted to do my own original music, and I didn't have an outlet. He said, so I started going to this, I guess, this tourist attraction, and it was like nice scenery, water, and everything. He started taking his keyboard out there and an amplifier and a microphone, and he set up a tip bucket, and he had his CDs out there. And that's what he started doing. He noticed he started getting money. He's like, hey, might be something to this. And so he started doing it on a regular. And he's been doing that for about, at that time that I watched that video, he had been doing it for about 3 years and had made over, between selling his CDs and performing with tips, he had done about 150 grand in a matter of 3 years. For some people, that's not a lot of money, but for the average musician, that's a pretty good income. That's roughly 50 grand a year. For a musician, that's pretty decent. In the States, and I'll say that in the States. So he had created something, and his philosophy behind that was, I'll put the food out there, and the ones who are hungry will come and eat the food. That's just one example of a person. I took that philosophy and started, many of you guys know about me doing the pizza gig thing. I wrote about it in a book, me doing the pizza gig thing, where I started playing my music at my local pizza bar. And it was really an outlet for me to get comfortable with performing and all these different things. I didn't become a millionaire from that. I didn't, at best, I kept gas in my truck with that little gig. But what it did, it started the wheels turning. I was already doing some entrepreneurial stuff, but not on a bigger scale. It started the wheels turning to like, hey, I can create something for myself to where I'm not dependent on someone calling me for a gig. If I can take this and duplicate it, or if I can take this idea and grow this idea in a different way, maybe I'm able to, if I could do this enough times and multiply this idea. So just say, if I got $50 from doing this situation here, all right, how can I take this same concept and do it somewhere else? Or what else can I do to take this same concept if I was doing 3 gigs a week and those gigs was playing $150 a piece? How do I replace those gigs with something else. And the ideas now are endless. Back then, we didn't have as much stuff with social media as we do now. You can do stuff from the comfort of your home now to create an abundance, if you will, of resources to where you can do limited gigs. You can still gig, on the side when you want to, but you don't have to always be waiting for someone to call you. Well, I guess I got to go do this because no one's calling me, or now you're depressed because no one calls you for a gig. You're dealing with all of this different stuff. I'm looked over and all of, well, how do you change that dynamic? What do you do to put something in place that you're not waiting on someone to call you? Because the chances are people might not know about you. Yeah, you could be the best thing since sliced bread, but if no one is hearing about you and the people you know that are in your circle have nothing to offer, they are fans of you, but they have nothing to offer. They're not booking any gigs. They're not booking any sessions or anything like that. So they might produce an artist once every 3 years or something like that, and they call you for that. But other than that, they're not calling. And then they're not in a network of people who are making things happen, then you're probably not going to get the call, because as a musician, a lot of this stuff is based on relationship. A lot of it is based on relationship. So my question to you today, as we talk about stop thinking like a musician, how can I start thinking like an entrepreneur to start creating situations where there are none? Start creating some ideas, create some things that I want to see, as opposed to dealing with what's handed to me. How do I start to change that dynamic? I challenge you today to start thinking about those different things. What are some things that you can do right there in your community? Some of you guys can start giving online lessons. Well, I don't know enough, man. It's so the common thing that I hear, man, there's so many people already giving bass lessons, but they don't have your fingerprint. Stop using that as an excuse. There are people, I talked about this in the book, there are people right there in your area where you live who are fans of you. And if you told them today, hey, I'm going to start giving bass lessons, and if you actually followed through and followed up with them, a lot of those people would, jump on the bandwagon. It might take a while to get started, and you might have to figure out a different way, or maybe doing some type of clinic or something. There's something you can do. You have to start thinking outside of the box. And maybe bass lessons might not be the thing. Maybe in your area, there are too many people giving bass lessons, and maybe they'll go to this person before they go to you. All right, so what do you have to offer that this other person doesn't, right? Real quick, Shane says, what music school did you go to? I didn't necessarily go to a music school. I went to the University of North Alabama, and I went to Itawamba Community College. So that, as you could hear, there wasn't a lot of formal education. I did take music theory at Itawamba Community College in Mississippi, but it was like introduction to music theory. It wasn't like anything at super advanced. I went to the school of hard knocks. That's that's what I really went to learn. So yeah, that's pretty much where I got most of my information from. So to answer that question, good day, Will. So yeah. So my thing for you guys today is to challenge the way that you've been thinking. I will say something that really helped me is to start reading, start looking outside of the norm. If you haven't already been doing that, if you only been doing this thing as a musician and you're just going on this whole path of, I got to get better, I got to get better, I got to get better. Because once I get better, everybody start calling me. Hopefully. Or maybe they won't. You'll just be a lot better. And every now and again, you get a gig and you get a couple of woos. That was great. And that's pretty much the extent of it. But how can you leverage something that you do really, really well to help push what you're trying to do forward? There's so many things that we do. A great friend of mine mentioned something to me. He said, Jermaine, just because it's easy for you, don't mean it's easy. I'm not going to rush past that statement. I want you to think about that for a second. As you think, as you process, and get your phone out if you need. Well, you're on your phone probably watching me. But if you have a piece of paper or something, write down at least 5 to 10 things for you that come kind of natural to you. It's kind of easy for you to do. Write those things down. It could be music related. They could be whatever. You might cook easy. Like other people get in the kitchen and struggling. Like you can put together a meal in and knock it out, and it ain't nothing. You know, it's like not even a thought for you. Or you're good at coming up with ideas for growing social media, that kind of thing. What are some things that come easy to you? Write them down. Write them down. 5 to 10 things that you have, and go through that list. Really dissect that list and figure out ways that you can take these things that are easy for you and start monetizing these things. Not so you can try, well, I'm gonna get rich off other people's back. No, you have these set of skills for a reason. Because the person that most of you work for, that's all they did. They looked at something that they do really well that other people don't do well, and then they hired other people to help them do it and to do it and to mass produce it. And because of doing that, they're able to run a whole corporation. They're able to run a whole company. All of these different things started with an idea. Some people were more tech savvy, like Steve Jobs, you know, with the Apple, the computers and the iPhone and all this kind of stuff. This guy was more tech savvy. Granted, he worked on it, he developed it, but this is something that it probably came a little more natural to him. And he took that thing that he was good at that most people weren't, he put it to use. He started working on it. He started using that creative genius inside of his brain. But Steve Jobs and other people are not the only ones. We all have a little bit of that. But the problem is most of us never tap into it because we're convinced that we don't have it. We're convinced that we don't have it. So you have to figure out, what is this thing that I have? Identify it first. Identify. That's why I said earlier, I can't tell you for you what that thing is because it's different for everybody. For me, a lot of mine is music related. And then there's some other areas that I started to notice. I'm like, hey, I'm kind of a natural at this particular thing. Okay, let me start developing that then, because I didn't realize that I was a natural at this. And maybe ask, as well as writing it down, the things you can come up with. Maybe ask some people that's like in your circle that's really close to you that you trust. Hey, what are some stuff you think I'm pretty good at, or some things I do naturally that I'm not aware of? Because there's some things that you could be doing naturally you're not aware of that other people will pay you for. There's some people, I heard this recently. They're like, there's some people who have just really, really positive attitudes. We talked about last week in our live, we talked about customer service and that idea of having good customer service. Well, if you have a really good attitude, you're a positive person, and you just pleasant to be around. Walmart hires people like that to be greeters. Now, some of these more modern greeters I've seen they don't possess that quality. Look like, whoever the staffing department, like, you just go stand out front and count folks. But back in the day, even I think about my hometown, the greeter that was at Walmart would always greet you with a smile. You felt warm soon as you walked in, just because of this person's attitude. They had this really, really great attitude, this great energy. So soon as you walked in the door, hey, how you doing? It's like you're smiling, you're having a conversation. Oh, the kids are getting so big and all this kind of stuff. Oh, you boys, I remember when you was like this. So it's like this very warm feeling. And granted, in a smaller town, that it's a little bit more welcoming in a smaller town, but because you get to know everybody. But that type of attitude, people will pay for that, because I want people to feel welcome in my business, in my establishment. If you're answering the phone and you have a bad attitude, hello, like, you know what? Don't even worry about it. You know what I'm saying? Because the way that people greet you is everything. So if you have a naturally positive personality, if you light up a room when you come in, that kind of thing is something that you could figure out a way. How do I do this? How do I duplicate this? How do I teach other people to be aware? What are some of the things that keep you smiling? Because some folks don't naturally have a positive attitude. Some people are mean, just naturally. They're mean, and maybe they don't know it. Maybe you're a person that's good at picking up on stuff and just telling people how it is, not in a negative way. Like, hey man, what if you try, doing this? I noticed that you look angry a lot. Try smiling a little bit more. And that person, just by the way you deliver that information to them, that person starts to lighten up and they start to become aware. Because one of the things I've noticed is awareness is what a lot of people miss out on. Awareness. They don't know that they're doing certain things. I used to, and this is my last story, and I gotta go. When I used to think she was mean when I saw her, because her natural face was like, and if you don't know her, you could think she's like, when she is in her relaxed state or whatever, you could think, oh man, she's mean. She don't like me. She don't this. And she's sitting there like, I ain't even thinking about you. Like my mind is on something else completely. And maybe some of you are like that. Your natural state, your natural face looks angry or whatever because it's just genetics. It's like you inherited something that you didn't ask for. But if somebody brings it to your attention, like, man, you really look mad all the time. It's like, oh, I wasn't aware of that. So now you start adjusting these things to smile. All right. So if that's something you're good at, how do I monetize that? I know I went around the world, but in all of these things, exactly, find a need and fill it. And all of these different things, you have to look at, all right, how can I solve a problem? That's what it all boils down to. What do I have that can solve someone else's problem? It is not about trying to get rich. It's about figuring out how to solve someone else's problem. And then at the same time, how do I monetize that in terms of solving this problem? Because it's good to do stuff for free, but we know that I can't go to the gas station and be like, hey, man, I just did this bass lesson and I really helped this guy out, man, and he really enjoyed it. And yeah, can you give me like $40 worth for free? And I appreciate it on pump 5. It is like, yeah, nah, we're not doing that. We're gonna need some exchange of currency, right? So you have something that's valuable, but you have to believe that it's valuable in order to start being able to monetize it. Because if you don't believe it's valuable, no one else is going to believe that it's valuable. So first of all, you start analyzing what it is that you have, assess the value of that thing, and then begin to monetize it and use it. You have to believe it, though. You have to believe that you're worth whatever it is. And it's not something that should offend people or turn people off. And if you're getting people that's like resisting you trying to monetize whatever that thing is, then those are the wrong people. That don't mean you're necessarily doing the wrong thing. If it's something that you've assessed that you're good at or something that comes natural to you and you know you can do this thing. You can do this. Like I'm good at this. Like maybe your plan needs some work. You know what I'm saying? Maybe your attitude needs some work. But this particular thing here, I can fry some chicken or I can fold some clothes or, I can clean a house. I can, whatever it is you do, you can do that thing. So now you start to believe in the worth that's attached to that and you begin to monetize that. Now that might go outside of the realm of musicians, but now it puts you playing and being a musician in its proper place. So now what I do as a musician, I can fully enjoy this because I'm not so concerned about how much money I'm going to get paid. And that starts to adjust my attitude because if I got this other thing over here that's providing me what I need and it's not taking all of my energy away from me, and I'm still able to come to this and do what I love to do, because I'm already doing what I love to do in so many other areas, it makes that creativity a lot easier. It gives you a little bit more freedom to do what it is you love to do as opposed to what you have to do. And now you don't have to keep accepting the gigs that you don't want to do. All right. So let me read through this. Jermaine, the masterpiece, checking in from Oxford. Mun Young, Oxford, Mississippi. All right. I see you. You down there close to my stomping grounds around there. Mun Young. So were you at Ole Miss when I came? I came to Ole Miss a few years ago. I don't know. You could have been out of school for 30 years. I don't know. I'm just asking. I'm curious. I'm asking for a friend. Angel, I'm told to engage with the crowd because I only I guess that means only like I only look like I'm angry, okay? But when I engage, people look away and don't engage back. So I play with my eyes closed. Any advice? Keep doing it. Maybe try not to have a staring contest, but try smiling when you're engaging. When you're looking at the audience, try smiling, not a creepy smile. You know what I'm saying? But try smiling. Try thinking of a happy thought while you're playing. I know this is kind of like some bubbly information, but if that's the case and it's something that you're really working on, you don't want to abandon that quick. You want to sit here and like do trial and error, see what works, see what doesn't work. So try smiling and, try scanning the room, or find a person that, gives you good eye contact and lock with that person for a while and then move on to somebody else. Because energy, what I had to learn the hard way, energy is infectious. So if they can sense your energy is good, then people will start to respond to your good energy. You don't have to really try and work as hard when you give off good energy. Uh, Possibly why people are turning away. Morning, Stephen. Possibly why people are turning away. They're not sure of your energy. You might mean well, but the energy that you're giving off could be off. So you have to really check your energy. A good friend of mine said this a long time ago. Try practicing in front of a mirror. And now we don't even have to do that as much because we have camera phones. Set your phone up. Like right now, I'm looking at this screen and I can see my face the entire time I'm talking. Set your phone up to where you can see your face and to see what you're giving off while you're playing. And, try not looking at your fretboard, but looking at your own body language and seeing what you're giving off. And based on what you're giving off, people are going to respond accordingly. Because notice, if you're in a conversation with a regular person and you start to smile while you're talking to them, they'll find themselves, after a while, they'll find themselves smiling just, subconsciously, because I'm responding to the energy that I'm being given. If you're married, you already know, you give your wife or your husband some bad energy, you come in with some kind of funky attitude, and you catch somebody on the right day, they're going to give you that same energy back. So you have to be mindful of the energy that you're giving off. And once we do that, I think we can start to get that energy returned to us. The more you smile, the more you, even if it's not smiling, but being pleasant, making sure the energy that you're giving off is pleasant. Unless you're just amazing. And like I use my dude Mono Neon. Unless you're just amazing, and it's like I can be motionless and no energy at all, but because I'm so amazing, you're gonna be engaged simply because you enjoy the music. A lot of people hear with their eyes. Yeah, I said it right. A lot of people hear with their eyes, but there are a few people who hear with their ears and they take it in, and you don't have to do all of this stuff. They're just, they feel it and they sense it. But everybody doesn't have the Mono Neon touch, where you could do whatever you want to do and people are going to love it. Everybody doesn't have that. So for the rest of us who don't possess that, we have to make sure that we work on that thing and be aware of what we're giving off so that we can experience the same thing back, right? If you look like you're enjoying playing, people are more likely to enjoy listening to you. Exactly. My point exactly, Alter. So, yeah. Anyway, guys, this has been really, really great, but I do have to go. I have another appointment. But I thank you guys for tuning in to Grooves and Motivation. I don't know what happened. I thank you guys for tuning in to Groove and Motivation Live this morning. Listen, if you want to know more about the lessons, if you want more of this one-on-one type of talk, be sure to check out my coaching calls on JermaineMorgan.net. I'll be glad to sit down with you one-on-one. Let's talk through some of these ideas that you have. I did do a course. I don't talk about this course a lot, but it's available. Some of this information that I was talking about today in terms of changing your mindset and all this kind of stuff, I packaged it together with some critical steps in a course called Be Productive and Multiply. It's on my, it's not a base course at all. It's literally information. I'm giving you years of information that I compiled, and you can take that information and move forward with what you need to move forward with. That the name of that course again is called Be Productive and Multiply. You don't have to be a musician to take that course. You can be anybody. But the information that I've worked through and that helped me to grow into this entrepreneurial role, I compile that information and I share it with you there. So I encourage you guys to go to JermaineMorgan.net. Check that out. Go to the courses tab. There's a drop down of every course that I have available, and I encourage you to check that stuff out if you want more of this type of information. If not, that's cool. But be sure to turn on my notifications. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't done so already, and give this video a thumbs up if you found it helpful. Be sure to share it with somebody if you found it helpful as well. So I appreciate you guys as usual for being here. I gotta go. I'm out of here. Much love. Peace.